A twilight-lit ancient African forest clearing with towering baobab trees, ancestral masks carved into the trunks, and a mystical wooden drum glowing faintly at the center of a circle. Around it, spectral figures of ancestors shimmer in the dusk mist. A young boy stands hesitantly at the edge, barefoot, holding a charm necklace, while a small monkey watches him from a nearby branch. The air in the village of Odafane was unusually heavy, as if the earth itself was listening. Low-hanging, mist crept through the dense undergrowth, curling around the roots of the baobab trees like sleeping serpents. The sky, dimming from golden hues to indigo shadows, signaled the arrival of twilight when the boundary between the living and the ancestral realm was said to thin. And on this night, beneath the thick canopy of ancestral trees, something ancient, sturdy at the edge of the forest clearing, a boy named Tari stood barefoot, his breath shallow and uncertain. 12 years old, with sharp eyes and a heart that beat too loud in his chest, he held tightly to a string of cowrie shells worn like a necklace. It had once belonged to his mother. He had found it hanging from the branch of an iroko tree this morning, an omen if ever there was one. The elders whispered that the iroko tree could open paths to places no man should tread unless in be. Ted.Tare was not supposed to be here. No one was. This part of the forest had long been forbidden. They called it Dgadmu, Oran, the gathering place of the spirits. According to his grandfather's stories, the spirits who came here didn't speak with words. They remembered. They echoed. They repeated stories lost to time, passed from generation to generation through beat, dance, and myth. But they also watched. They listened for lies, especially the ones men told themselves. And tonight, Tari had come with questions. The living were too afraid to answer. The center of the clearing was marked by a great wooden drum, taller than a man. Its surface was darkened with age, its carvings eroded by time and weather. It stood on 3 legs, each shaped like an outstretched hand, fingers splayed as if offering or pleading. No one knew who had built it, only that it had always been here. And though its drumhead was cracked and silent, people still claimed to hear it echo on moonless nights, especially when the old gods were restless. Tari stepped into the clearing. The earth beneath his feet felt different, cooler, softer, pulsing faintly. The stillness was overwhelming, the kind that came just before a storm or the turning of something sacred. He walked slowly toward the drum. He didn't know what he would do when he reached it. All he knew was that his dreams had become filled with its rhythms, beats he had never heard before, but somehow understood. Behind him, a quiet rustle. He turned sharply. A small monkey, no bigger than a loaf of bread, peered down at him from a low branch. Its fur was mottled with gray and white, and a single golden ring gleamed from its ear. It tilted its head, blinking slowly as if it recognized him. "You again," Tari whispered. He had seen the monkey once before on the day of his father's funeral. It had perched on the roof of the ceremonial hut, unmoving, watching the procession, like an elder with secrets. It hadn't run then. It didn't run now, taking it as a sign. Tari stepped up to the drum. The air buzzed softly, like insects humming beneath the skin of the world. He reached out his hand, hesitating only a moment before pressing his palm against the drumhead. The forest exhaled. Suddenly, the trees groaned as if remembering their age. The mist thickened, swirling around Tari's feet. From behind the trees, shadows emerged, not walking, not floating, but simply becoming. Tall, shimmering figures cloaked in tattered robes of smoke and light. Their faces were covered by ancestral masks, some shaped like antelope, some like birds, some like nothing human at all. They formed a circle around the drum, and Tari stood. Frozen in their center, one of them stepped forward. Its mask was jagged, carved from dark wood, with lines that seemed to move like water. It held a staff made of bone and ivory. "You seek echoes," it said, not with a voice, but with the beat of a drum Tari did not see. He felt the words in his chest, his bones, even his teeth. He nodded, unable to speak. "What truth do you seek, son of Ayanda?" "My father," Tari whispered. "They say he fell, that he died while hunting. But he never hunted. He was a storyteller. He never held a spear." Silence. Then, the spirits began to move. A slow circle, a dance. Their movements were not smooth but ancient, each one carrying the rhythm of something older than language. The drum beneath Ter's palm began to vibrate faintly. A deep sound echoed once through the clearing, not loud, but enough to make the air ripple. Then, a second beat. Then, another. The drum was playing itself. Around him, the spirits sang not in voice, but in breath, in memory, in rhythm, and in their swirling presence, images began to form in the mist. He saw a younger version of his father, laughing around a fire, telling stories to children. Then he saw the same man meeting under moonlight with cloaked figures trading carved talismans, exchanging whispers, slipping through shadows. "He was a watcher," said the masked spirit, "one who walks between stories and truths." "What does that mean?" "That he bore a burden. The drum had chosen him, as it now chooses you." Tari backed away, shaking his head. "No, I just wanted to know why he lied, why he kept secrets, why he left." The drum boomed once, louder than before. The ground beneath his feet trembled. The mist split open like a curtain, revealing a scene Tari had never witnessed but instantly recognized. His father, on the night of his death. A clearing not unlike this one. A confrontation. A figure cloaked in blue fire, faceless, towering. The drum between them. And then a burst of light, and his father was gone. "The trickster," the spirit said. "Eshu?" Tari whispered. The spirit nodded. "He comes where stories bend, where paths split, where drums echo without hands." "But why?" Tari asked. "Why my father?" The monkey on the branch let out a soft chitter, and for a moment, its eyes flashed silver, knowing, ancient. "He told a story he wasn't supposed to," the spirit said. "One not yet ready to be remembered." Tari turned toward the drum. And now, the spirits began to fade, their masks evaporating into mist. The drum's beat slowed, then stopped. But something lingered, an invitation, a challenge, a promise. "You now carry the echo." The spirit's voice faded. "Choose wisely what you strike into the world." As the clearing emptied of all but silence, Tari sat before the drum. The monkey leapt down beside him, curling into a tight ball. The cowrie necklace pulsed gently against his chest. He closed his eyes and raised his hands. And somewhere in the belly of the ancient forest, the first beat of a new story sounded. Beneath the ancient, gnarled roots of the ceiba tree, where the spirits whispered in rustling leaves and the earth throbbed with memory, Eshu waited. He did not wait often, nor did he enjoy doing so, but this moment required patience. The ceiba was sacred, an anchor between realms, where heaven's veins dipped into the mortal soil. It was here, under the yawning shade, that Eshu planned to alter the course of the tale unfolding. Night had not yet arrived, but the light had softened, thickened, like warm molasses stretching across the forest floor. The sound of distant drums rolled faintly over the hills, mingling with the insect chorus. Eshu sat cross-legged, twirling a thin stalk of grass between his teeth. His hat tilted forward as if he were napping. But he was not. He was listening. Approaching through the undergrowth came a woman whose steps made no sound. Her presence was like smoke, uncertain, ethereal, yet purposeful. She wore a cloak woven of midnight, embroidered with starlight. Her hair, bound in copper wire, glinted as she moved. This was Nanan Quanta, a priestess not just of the ancestors, but of secrets. She did not speak immediately. She sat opposite him without so much as a greeting. I wondered how long it would take you to answer, Eshu said eventually, not moving his hat. You left no question, she replied calmly. Only a riddle scratched into bark. Eshu chuckled. And yet you solved it. It was not difficult. He shrugged. Perhaps I made it easy for you. They sat in silence again. The ceiba leaves above shifted in rhythm, making a sound like quiet clapping. Finally, Nana asked, Why summon me? I didn't, Eshu said. You summoned yourself. I merely opened the door. Then why am I here? Because you know that time is thinning. The walls between now and before are cracking like eggshells, and something older than even I wants to crawl through. She folded her hands on her knees. And you need me. I need a bargain. Nana frowned. She had made bargains before, but never lightly, especially not with Eshu. Speak plainly. Eshu tipped back his hat. His eyes glowed faintly, like coals nearly extinguished. There's a drum. It was carved by hands that no longer exist. It carries a rhythm that shapes time. When it is played at the wrong hour, it can call things best left unnamed. Someone has found it. A child. Nana narrowed her eyes. A child. Eshu nodded. Unknowing, curious, vulnerable, and the child is about to use it in a ceremony that should not be remembered. The priestess looked away for a long while. A small lizard darted across the route between them. You could intervene yourself. I could, Eshu agreed. But if I do, the balance shifts too greatly. The drum is ancient. It predates even my lineage. I cannot touch it without consequence. You, on the other hand, can. Nana considered this. What do you offer in return? Eshu grinned. Ah, there it is, the true dance begins. He reached into his robe and withdrew a small object. It was a pendant carved from river bone, humming softly with protective energy. For you, a token. This will allow you to speak to the drum. It will not hear everyone, but it will hear you. I asked what you offer, not what you give. Eshu leaned in, his voice low and warm like fermented honey. If you help the child, if you steady the song and silence what should sleep, I will owe you. The priestess's eyes widened slightly. A favor from Eshu was a dangerous thing to hold. Powerful, unpredictable, but real. You will owe me, she repeated. Eshu nodded. You may call it in whenever you like, but beware, favors are seeds. You may not always like what they grow into. And if I refuse, then the child drums into the dusk, and something with teeth and memory steps through the crack. She stood slowly, brushing her palms against her robe. Tell me where. Eshu pointed. Beyond the third hill, where the water bends like a serpent and the fireflies never go out. Look for the child under the ruins of the moon shrine. She did not thank him. She did not have to, as she disappeared into the brush. The ceiba sighed above. Eshu watched her go, his grin flickering away like smoke. He did not know if she would succeed, but he had tilted the odds later that night. As the jungle thickened and the fireflies blinked in ancient rhythms, Nanan Quanta reached the ruins. The air felt thick here, not with heat but with intention. Moss-covered stones formed a forgotten circle where ceremonies once bound time to flesh. In the center stood a boy, no more than 10, holding a drum larger than his chest. His hands hovered over it, unsure. "Stop," Nana said gently. The boy looked up, surprised but not frightened. "It sings to me," he said. "I know," she replied. "I was told to play it." "By who?" He frowned. "No one I could see. But they whispered." Nana stepped closer. "What did they say?" "That the world had forgotten something. That it was time to remember. And if you play it, they will come back." Nana knelt before him. The boy's eyes were distant, almost glazed. She took the pendant Eshu gave her and let it rest on the drum's skin. It shimmered faintly, vibrating with unheard notes. "The drum remembers pain," she whispered, "but you don't have to." The boy blinked. The air around them wavered like heat. "Let it go," she said. His hands dropped. The drum let out one low thump, like a heart releasing its final breath. The forest was still. A wind passed through, stirring the leaves but making no sound. The pendant cracked, far away, beneath the ceiba. Eshu opened one eye and smiled. Beneath the ancient, gnarled roots of the ceiba tree, where the spirits whispered in rustling leaves and the earth throbbed with memory, Eshu waited. He did not wait often, nor did he enjoy doing so, but this moment required patience. The ceiba was sacred, an anchor between realms, where heaven's veins dipped into the mortal soil. It was here, under the yawning shade, that Eshu planned to alter the course of the tale unfolding. Night had not yet arrived, but the light had softened, thickened, like warm molasses stretching across the forest floor. The sound of distant drums rolled faintly over the hills, mingling with the insect chorus. Eshu sat cross-legged, twirling a thin stalk of grass between his teeth. His hat tilted forward as if he were napping. But he was not. He was listening. Approaching through the undergrowth came a woman whose steps made no sound. Her presence was like smoke, uncertain, ethereal, yet purposeful. She wore a cloak woven of midnight, embroidered with starlight. Her hair, bound in copper wire, glinted as she moved. This was Nanan Quanta, a priestess not just of the ancestors, but of secrets. She did not speak immediately. She sat opposite him without so much as a greeting. "I wondered how long it would take you to answer," Eshu said eventually, not moving his hat. "You left no question," she replied calmly. "Only a riddle scratched into bark." Eshu chuckled. "And yet you solved it." "It was not difficult." He shrugged. "Perhaps I made it easy for you." They sat in silence again. The ceiba leaves above shifted in rhythm, making a sound like quiet clapping. Finally, Nana asked, "Why summon me?" "I didn't," Eshu said. "You summoned yourself. I merely opened the door." "Then why am I here?" "Because you know that time is thinning. The walls between now and before are cracking like eggshells, and something older than even I wants to crawl through." She folded her hands on her knees. "And you need me." "I need a bargain." Nana frowned. She had made bargains before, but never lightly, especially not with Eshu. "Speak plainly." Eshu tipped back his hat. His eyes glowed faintly, like coals nearly extinguished. "There's a drum. It was carved by hands that no longer exist. It carries a rhythm that shapes time. When it is played at the wrong hour, it can call things best left unnamed. Someone has found it." "A child?" Nana narrowed her eyes. "A child?" Eshu nodded. "Unknowing, curious, vulnerable, and and the child is about to use it in a ceremony that should not be remembered. The priestess looked away for a long while. A small lizard darted across the route between them. You could intervene yourself. I could, Eshu agreed. But if I do, the balance shifts too greatly. The drum is ancient. It predates even my lineage. I cannot touch it without consequence. You, on the other hand, can. Nana considered this. What do you offer in return? Eshu grinned. Ah, there it is, the true dance begins. He reached into his robe and withdrew a small object. It was a pendant carved from river bone, humming softly with protective energy. For you, a token. This will allow you to speak to the drum. It will not hear everyone, but it will hear you. I asked what you offer, not what you give. Eshu leaned in, his voice low and warm like fermented honey. If you help the child, if you steady the song and silence what should sleep, I will owe you. The priestess's eyes widened slightly. A favor from Eshu was a dangerous thing to hold. Powerful, unpredictable, but real. You will owe me, she repeated. Eshu nodded. You may call it in whenever you like, but beware, favors are seeds. You may not always like what they grow into. And if I refuse, then the child drums into the dusk, and something with teeth and memory steps through the crack. She stood slowly, brushing her palms against her robe. Tell me where. Eshu pointed. Beyond the third hill, where the water bends like a serpent and the fireflies never go out. Look for the child under the ruins of the moon shrine. She did not thank him. She did not have to, as she disappeared into the brush. The sea beside above. Eshu watched her go, his grin flickering away like smoke. He did not know if she would succeed, but he had tilted the odds later that night, as the jungle thickened and the fireflies blinked in ancient rhythms. Nananquanta reached the ruins. The air felt thick here, not with heat but with intention. Moss-covered stones formed a forgotten circle where ceremonies once bound time to flesh. In the center stood a boy, no more than 10, holding a drum larger than his chest. His hands hovered over it, unsure. Stop, Nana said gently. The boy looked up, surprised but not frightened. It sings to me, he said. I know, she replied. I was told to play it. By who? He frowned. No one I could see, but they whispered. Nana stepped closer. What did they say? That the world had forgotten something. That it was time to remember. And if you play it, they will come back. Nana knelt before him. The boy's eyes were distant, almost glazed. She took the pendant Eshu gave her and let it rest on the drum's skin. It shimmered faintly, vibrating with unheard notes. The drum remembers pain, she whispered, but you don't have to. The boy blinked. The air around them wavered like heat. Let it go, she said. His hands dropped. The drum let out one low thump, like a heart releasing its final breath. The forest was still. A wind passed through, stirring the leaves but making no sound. The pendant cracked, far away, beneath the ceiba. Eshu opened one eye and smiled. The sun dipped lower behind the ridges of the distant hills, casting amber light across the path that Eshu followed. His feet were bare, the soles dusted with the red earth that always seemed to cling to him, like memory. He walked without haste, without need. It was not the destination that called him forward, but the rhythm of a drum that beat far away, an echo from a place that remembered the ancients and asked them to return. The trees thickened as he entered the grove, their branches heavy with silence, not absence. No, there was sound here, but it was ancient sound, moss breathing, insects whispering secrets in languages older than speech. and wind brushing against bark as if reading a story. Eshu paused where the forest floor dipped slightly, forming a shallow basin between towering trees. The grove was not marked on any map, nor remembered in any song, but he had found it. Or rather, it had found him. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the trickster's drum. It was a small, humble thing, no larger than his hand, but when struck, it echoed across realms. He didn't strike it yet. He simply held it, letting the energy within hum to life. Around him, the forest stilled even more. The branches above stopped rustling. A squirrel froze mid-leap. A frog held its breath. In a patch of shadow, the whole world leaned in. Eshu knelt and touched the ground with his fingers. It was cool, pulsing gently. Something ancient was beneath, not buried like a secret, but sleeping like a truth too powerful to remain awake. He struck the drum once, softly, boom. Sound sank into the earth like water on thirsty soil. The moss quivered. A vine slithered up a nearby root. The trees spoke. He didn't hear words, not in the way humans speak them. The language of trees was slower, less direct. It rolled in waves, feeling, image, memory, decay. The trees remembered when giants walked among them, when fire sang instead of destroyed, and when names had weight. Eshu closed his eyes. The trees showed him a face long forgotten, carved in stone, lips parted in song, a spirit of the forest, now only echo. They showed him fire, not destruction, but transformation. Trees bending into drums, breath turning into rhythm. They showed him hands, his hands drumming in another age, another body, another time. He opened his eyes. The trickster had been here before. A breeze stirred the leaves behind him, and with it, a voice not from the trees, but from something else. "You return," it said, not a question, but a statement wrapped in amusement. Eshu turned his head. Slowly, a woman stood between two trees, wrapped in green so deep it looked like she'd grown from the bark itself. Her eyes were black, pupils wider than any human's, and her hair cascaded in tangled vines and blossoms. She was not spirit nor human, but both, a keeper of this place. "I go where stories need tending," Eshu replied. This one needed a little air. She tilted her head. "You never really leave, do you?" "Neither do you." They stood facing each other for a long moment. Around them, the grove swelled with presence. Roots shifted beneath the ground, murmuring welcome and warning alike. "You came to ask," she said finally, stepping closer. "Ask what lies below. Ask what still breathes." "I came to remember," Eshu said. She smiled, though her face carried sorrow. "Then you must dig." He looked down at the soft patch of moss she now stood beside. Without a word, he knelt again and pushed his fingers into the ground. The soil was loam and memory, and it parted like pages of a book. Beneath the surface, a shape emerged, a mask carved of wood, darkened by time, split once across the brow, but lovingly repaired with gold resin. He lifted it gently. The drum in his other hand thrummed faintly, recognizing the mask. "This is the first face," the woman whispered. "The one you wore when stories were born from fire." Eshu pressed the mask to his chest. The grove pulsed with memory. His bones felt older now, heavier. The weight of all the stories he had ever told or failed to finish pressed against him. "I told the first lie with this face," he murmured. "No," she corrected. "You told the first truth disguised as a lie. That is your gift." He laughed then, soft and tired. "Same thing, some would say, but not you." He placed the mask beside the drum, letting them rest together on the moss. The woman sat beside him, legs crossed, her presence steady as the trees. The ancients are stirring, she said. I know. They won't remember kindly. I know. They will ask you to choose. At this, Eshu was silent. The wind picked up, spiraling leaves around them, turning the grove into a slow-moving cyclone of memory. The woman didn't flinch. What if I don't choose? He asked finally. Then the world will choose for you. That was the truth beneath all things. Even tricksters could not outrun consequence. The woman leaned forward and touched the mask. Take it. Not to wear, but to carry, to remind. Eshu did, and as he did, a sound rolled through the grove, not from him, nor from her, but from the ground itself. A deep, guttural hum, a name, forgotten until now, whispered by the roots of the world. He looked at her, eyebrows raised. The drum will beat louder now, she said. Are you ready? Eshu stood. I'm never ready, but I always arrive. The trees laughed, a rustling like joy. She stood with him. Go then, but remember when the wind turns warm and the fire speaks in tongues. The ancients will be listening. I'll be singing, Eshu said. They always liked my songs. The trickster's drum thudded once more as he turned and walked from the grove. Behind him, the mask hummed in harmony, and the forest whispered his name, not as a warning, but a welcome. Eshu, the one who remembers. Eshu, the one who lies to reveal. Eshu, the echo and the origin, and far in the distance, the beat of the drum grew louder, drawing spirits, summoning shadows, and calling forth the ancient song once again. The sky above the silent valley was the shade of ash just before the rain. Not gray, not white, but a breath between the two, a color that belonged to no hour and no season. Eshu, the trickster, stood barefoot in the cool, dewed grass of the forgotten valley, a place where the air itself seemed reluctant to stir. This was not a place known to many, nor one easily found even if it were. It was a valley that held echoes, not sounds, memories, not movement, and in the center of it, Eshu stood with his drum. He had walked 3 days from the village, leaving behind the stench of burning herbs, the rhythm of the fire chants, and the wails of a mother mourning her son. None of it followed him here. None of it could. Here, even the earth seemed to observe silence, and the trees that lined the edge of the valley stood like guardians made of patience and bark. The drum he carried wasn't new. It was old in the way only truth can be. The hide stretched across its round face was dark and cracked, with oils from countless palms soaked into its pores. The wood, carved from Iroko, still pulsed with the rhythm of the sacred tree. The handle was worn smooth by generations of fingers, many of whom never spoke their names aloud. It had been passed down to him not with ceremony, but with silence. And now, in silence, he would summon what needed to be remembered. He sat cross-legged, in the center of the valley. The grass was cold. Dampness kissed his skin. He closed his eyes. And then, he began to play. It wasn't a loud beat, not a battle rhythm, not the thundering call of spirits summoned in firelight. No, this beat was slow, hesitant, almost shy, like a story beginning from the middle. It tapped out a rhythm not meant to command but to invite, the kind of beat that asked, "Do you remember?" The kind of beat that knew the answer would be, "I don't, but I want to." Each thump of the drum felt like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples spread across the valley, not visible, but deeply felt. Birds remained silent. The trees creaked, but only in response to the beat, as if swaying with memory. And then, after what felt like an age, The silence changed. It didn't end. It transformed. A hush doesn't always mean absence. Sometimes it means waiting. And now the hush was holding its breath. Eshu felt the shift before he saw it. A change in the air, a taste of iron on his tongue, the weight of eyes, not hostile, but curious. From the trees, from the grass, from the stones themselves, something was listening. Something ancient, something sacred. Good, he said quietly, without pausing the beat. You're still here. From the far end of the valley, a whisper rose. It was not wind. Wind doesn't hum in tones long dead. Wind doesn't remember names you never told it. This was the murmur of ancestors, of stories buried too long beneath silence. And the drum answered, beat after beat, calling them forth like a friend remembering a secret they swore they'd forget. The first to appear was not a man, nor a woman, but a shape-hand outline of possibility. Its body shimmered like the surface of still water under a full moon. It did not speak with words, but with presence. Memory poured from its very existence. A grandmother who once danced barefoot in the dust, a hunter who lost his spear in a forbidden grove, a child who never grew old. All of them, none of them. The spirit hovered near Eshu, and the drum shifted in rhythm. Tell me, Eshu whispered. But the spirit did not respond in language. It offered him something far deeper, a vision. He saw himself as a boy, running through the tall grass with a wooden stick, laughing at nothing and everything. He saw his mother clapping along to a song she never learned but always remembered. He saw a village not yet broken by fear, a time when the trickster's mischief brought laughter, not dread. The vision faded, and another came, a fire, a warning, a betrayal, a time when Eshu's trick meant to be harmless led to something darker. He had whispered a lie into a warrior's ear. That warrior, desperate for love, twisted it into a blade. Blood was spilled. Eshu never meant for that. But meaning didn't matter. Only consequence did. The drum faltered, his hand paused for half a beat. The spirit receded, not in anger, but in understanding. It knew, it remembered too, and the valley held him in its memory, not to judge, but to remind. More spirits followed. One by one, they carried fragments of time. A woman who sang her baby to sleep on the night before a raid. A man who planted yams he would never live to harvest. A child whose laugh sounded too much like Eshu's for comfort. He saw his own face in them, over and over. Different versions, different timelines. Echoes of choices not made and words not spoken. And through it all, the drum beat on. Sometimes it was slow, sometimes furious. Sometimes it paused, as if trying to find its next breath. But it never stopped entirely. Not once. Because this rhythm, Eshu knew, was the line between forgetting and remembering. Between existing and being lost. He looked up. The valley shimmered with presence now. It was full but not crowded. The air was thicker, not with suffocation, but with meaning. The silence was still there, but now it pulsed in time with the drum, like a second heartbeat. He whispered, "You remember me?" And the valley answered not in words, but in warmth. A breeze, soft and kind, passed over his skin. The grass bent in agreement. The drum vibrated under his palm as if acknowledging the question. And the answer was yes, yes, we remember you. Not as a god, not as a demon, but as something in between. As a bridge, as a keeper of balance, sometimes broken, always returning. The spirits began to recede, not vanish, just return, back into the cracks of stone and bark. back into memory, where they always belonged. Eshu's drumbeat slowed. He was tired, not in body, but in soul. He had remembered too much, seen too clearly. But this, too, was the path. This was what the drum demanded, not just rhythm, truth. He stood slowly, knees stiff from the cold, and for a final time, he beat the drum down once till it rang clear across the valley, a note of closure. And then silence returned. But now, the silence was different, not empty, not hollow. It was full of everything they had shared. Eshu smiled, not out of joy, but out of recognition. He turned and walked out of the valley, the drum slung over his shoulder. And though he heard no footsteps behind him, he knew he did not leave alone. The sanctuary stood silent beneath the darkening sky, once cloaked in vines and dust. It had awakened with a low pulse that beat like a heart made of stone. Moss clung to the base of pillars shaped like serpent spines, and golden dusk filtered through the broken dome above. At the center of the temple was the drum, no taller than a man's knee, its hide glistening unnaturally in the fading light. It had no name. It needed none. Those who knew it called it only the Trickster's drum. Eshu stood before it, barefoot, stripped of all ornament. Even his favorite talisman, a bone token given to him by a shadow in a dream, had been taken from him. His red cloth sash, which once fluttered with every step, had been folded away by hands he could not see. He was bare, except for the markings that danced over his chest and arms, sigils of protection, mischief, and truth. The temple was not empty. In the dim alcoves, cloaked figures sat in stillness, their eyes hidden behind carved wooden masks. Elders, spirits. Eshu didn't know, and perhaps it didn't matter. In this place, identity melted. All that remained was purpose. A sudden beat broke the silence. One thud, then two, then three, then none. The trial had begun. A voice rose from the shadows, not harsh, not soft, not even distinctly human. It was more like the murmur of wind passing through thick reeds. Eshu, son of Crossroads, you have called the spirits. You have roused the old rhythm. Speak your name and purpose. He cleared his throat. His voice echoed more than it should have in the chamber, stretched and warped by ancient acoustics. I am Eshu, walker of paths, finder of forks, stir of stories. I have come to claim the right of the drum. A ripple went through the masked figures. Not anger, not approval, simply movement, like the breeze brushing a still pond. The right, the voice said again, must be earned. From the shadows came a figure, taller than the rest, its mask painted in spirals of gold and blue. In its hands was a curved staff, carved with faces laughing, crying, yawning, snarling. Each one caught the light differently. The figure stepped forward and planted the staff beside the drum. You must answer, it said, not with lips alone, but with beat, with rhythm, with truth. Eshu nodded once. He took his place before the drum. It pulsed faintly, as if recognizing him. You may begin, the voice said. But remember, a lie told to the drum returns tenfold. A truth spoken too soon will silence the skin. Choose each beat as you would choose your final breath. Eshu closed his eyes. The first question came like a gust. Who do you serve? He hesitated. His heartbeat filled his ears. His fingers found the drum. Boom, boom, tap, boom, tap. A story, not a sentence. That was the rule. His rhythm spoke. I serve the motion between stillness. I serve the choice not yet made. I serve the laughter that erupts when all else crumbles. The drum vibrated beneath his fingers, not rejecting, not embracing, accepting. For now, another voice, a different one now, shriller, like the crack of dry leaves. What have you stolen? Eshu grinned. His fingers danced over the hide. Tap dash tap boom. Tap boom tap. Boom. Boom. I stole silence from graves. I stole hunger from mouths. I stole certainty from kings. And once, I stole a dream from a weaver and replaced it with a memory. No one wanted a pause. The temple held its breath. Then the third voice came, this one colder, more rhythmic, as though it were the drum itself speaking. Why are you afraid? That one cut deep. He wasn't sure he had a rhythm for that. He placed both palms on the drum and let them rest there. The answer came slowly, fingers brushing truth like cold water. Boom. Tap. Boom. Pause. Tap. Tap. Boom. I fear being understood. I fear becoming only one thing. I fear stillness. I fear the moment when even the wind forgets my name. This time, the masked figures shifted in clear approval. A drumbeat sounded not from his drum, but from somewhere deeper, below, within. The ritual moved forward. Now came the challenge phase. The drum would now respond from the shadows. The golden spiral masked figure took the drum and placed it at the temple's center. A masked initiate took Eshu's place and struck a rhythm of accusation. Boom, boom, tap, boom, boom. You broke the chain between past and future. You let the storm enter the home. You opened the gate without knowing who waited beyond it. The beat stung. Eshu stepped forward. He had to respond, not in denial, but with a deeper truth. A counterbeat, not a defense. His fingers struck back. Boom. Tap tap. Boom. Boom. Pause. Tap. Yes. I broke the chain, but the chain was rusted. The storm was already in the walls. The gate whispered to be opened, and I was only the echo. A few masked heads nodded. Another rhythm, a heavier one now. Boom, 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 tap, boom, tap, boom, boom. You are chaos with no map, trickery without mercy. You make others pay the price for the joke you wrote in blood. The truth of it ached in Eshu's hands. Still, he replied, tap, tap, boom, tap, tap. Boom, boom, tap. I am a mirror, not a blade. Those who trip do so on stones they placed. I merely point to what hides beneath smiles. Now the drum glowed faintly. It had accepted his rhythms. One final beat remained. The masked figure returned and lifted the drum above their head. The final question, they intoned, is the one you must ask yourself. Eshu stepped into the center, heart hammering like a wild thing. He touched the drum. Then, slowly, deliberately, he struck a rhythm not with his fingers, but with his palm. Boom, boom, boom. Who am I when no one watches? He waited. The silence stretched. No voices answered. No masked figures stirred. No rhythm returned. And yet, the drum began to beat on its own. Boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, boom. A reply. A rhythm born not of judgment, but understanding. It told a story without words. You are change. You are the moment between stories. You are the heartbeat of what could be. The light dimmed. The masked figures vanished like mist burned off by morning. The drum was gone too, but Eshu stood taller, changed, not forgiven, not condemned, but known. Outside the temple, the night had fallen in full. The stars blinked like eyes, and somewhere deep in the earth, the rhythm continued. The sun had long fallen behind the horizon, leaving a silken veil of indigo and silver above the jungle canopy. Torches flickered along the perimeter of the ancient grove, their flames shivering like whispering spirits. The trickster, Eshu, stood at the heart of the circle once more, the sacred drum before him, worn and stained, pulsing with untold stories. The time for illusion had passed. The seventh echo would not reveal a tale to entertain, or deceive, it would judge. And tonight, the grove would listen not with ears, but with soul. The elders gathered silently, their white robes brushing the earth like ghostly mist. Round them, the guardians of the grove, silent panthers of shadow, sentient trees, owl spirits watched. For once, even the trickster did not smirk. Tonight's echo was not one of mischief. It was one of reckoning, as Eshu's fingers hovered above the taut hide of the drum. He inhaled deeply, drawing in the thick scent of earth, fire, and memory. He struck once, and the sound that emerged was low, mournful like a heartbeat slowed with age and burden. And then the world turned, the grove dissolved, and all who listened fell into the echo. The village of Kumbor had once been prosperous, kissed by both sunlight and rain in perfect measure. The crops yielded without complaint, the rivers sang with fish, and its people knew laughter as often as breath. But peace, like all things, bore a shadow. A child was born beneath the red eclipse, a boy with storm-colored eyes and skin that shimmered like oil under moonlight. The elders whispered of omens, while others simply named him Adwail and fed him sweetened porridge. The boy grew fast, and spoke words older than language before his teeth had fully come in. At night, he wandered into the forest and returned with berries that no one else could find, and feathers from birds no one else had seen. It was Eshu who first noticed him, or perhaps it was the other way around. The trickster appeared to Adwail in the space between dreams and dusk, draped in crimson and black, his smile stretching wider than reason allowed. "You walk between truths, little storm. Do you know what you are?" "I know I'm hungry," Adwail said. Eshu laughed, delighted. "Hunger is truth. So is mischief. But truth, oh, truth is the hardest tale to carry." As years passed, Adwail grew not just in body but in power. He could shape clouds with a glance, mend broken limbs with a whisper. The villagers both revered and feared him. Mothers left offerings outside his hut, beads, dried fish, even their dreams written on palm leaves. But power, too, cast shadows. One season, the rain did not come. The fields withered, the wells soured, and the villagers turned to Adwail, desperate. "Why have the gods cursed us?" they cried. "Use your power. Make it rain." But Adwail, now a young man wrapped in woven storm-colored robes, simply said, "Rain falls when it is meant to. It is not my hand to command." The people grew restless, and Eshu watched. One night, under a moonless sky, a child died feverish, crying for water. A mother, inconsolable, knelt before Adwail and screamed, "You let him die. You could have saved him. You are no healer. You are a curse." Whispers became roars. Offerings became stones, and so began the trial of truth. Eshu's drum beat faster now, and the fire in the grove flared with it. The echo deepened. The scene shifted. Adwail stood before the council of the Bone Circle, an ancient tribunal of spirits, ancestors, and one mortal representative from each realm. Their eyes were hollow, but they saw too much. "You are accused," intoned the spirit of ash, voice like dry leaves, "of hoarding divine knowledge, of disrupting the balance, of pretending to be a god among men." Adwail did not bow. "I never claimed divinity. I only lived. Yet they worshipped you. I never asked them to. You never stopped them. The air grew heavier. You stood to the side, not as a judge, nor a defendant, but as the one who had watched. His expression unreadable. The council demanded a truth, not an answer. Then tell us, Adwail, whispered the spirit of memory. Why did you not bring the rain? Adwail closed his eyes. Because the land needed to suffer to remember. It had forgotten humility. The people had forgotten to ask, to plead, to dance. They only demanded. They prayed for miracles but forgot to grow gratitude. I would not feed their arrogance. Silence followed, then murmurs of dissent. So you chose suffering. I chose truth. Eshu smiled. The council did not. The punishment was not death. That would have been simple. No, the sentence was transformation. Adwail was stripped of his name, his body, unraveled into wind, his voice scattered across 10,000 leaves. He would become the whisper behind storms, the sigh in dry wells, the rustle in forgotten groves. A spirit of consequence, a teacher, still but one no longer heard directly. And yet, Eshu caught a fragment of his essence in a calabash, tucked beneath the strings of his drum. For even truth, when scattered, deserves a rhythm to return to. The echo faded, the grove returned, the drum was still, the fire quiet. Eshu bowed his head for the first time. Round him, the listeners sat, silent and shaken. The story had no trick, no reversal, no clever escape. It had only weight and truth. From the shadows, a young girl no more than 12 stood and stepped into the circle. I saw him, she said. Eshu tilted his head. In the echo, I saw Adwail. He touched the well in my dream last night. I didn't know who he was. Eshu's smile returned, soft and sad. He still teaches, he said. Then he raised the drum once more, and the next echo waited. The forest was quieter than it had ever been, wrapped in a sort of hush that only came before revelations or punishments. The trickster, Eshu, sat cross-legged before the fire, the drum on his lap whispering heat through the stretched skin. He hadn't played it since the river had turned against him 3 moons ago, since the sky had wept blood-red tears, and the villagers had walked backward through time to forget what they saw. But tonight, the forest had called, the air trembled, with something older than language, and the leaves shivered with secrets. Even the owls remained still, unwilling to bear witness. Eshu touched the rim of the drum lightly with his fingers. He could feel it thrum faintly, not with sound, but with memory. It remembered him. It remembered the tricks. It remembered the time he convinced a village that the moon had drowned, or the night he painted 2 goats red and declared them cursed gods, demanding sweet yams as offerings. The drum remembered everything, and so did the forest. You are not alone, came a voice, low and rough as tree bark. It wasn't threatening, but it didn't need to be. The forest didn't speak unless it had decided something. Eshu didn't turn. He kept his eyes on the flickering firelight and gently tapped the drum once. A hollow note rolled out, floating upward and vanishing into the canopy. I know, he said calmly. You've all come to listen. A wind passed over him, rustling the dead leaves around his feet. It didn't feel natural. It felt shaped, touched. It carried the scent of roasted plantain, goat fat, and the sharp iron tang of regret. The forest was remembering. You stole laughter, the voice said again, this time from behind him. Eshu's fingers paused on the drum. Laughter can't be stolen, he said without turning around. It's given freely. You twisted it. The voice insisted. You turned joy into shadow. And now the shadow returns. Eshu did not deny it. He had done many things in the name of mischief. Once, he had told a farmer his cow was sacred and must be bathed in river mud daily. That cow had become so slippery it had escaped, leaving hoof prints on rooftops for weeks. The villagers had laughed, yes, but they also starved when milk became scarce. He struck the drum again, this time 3 short beats followed by a pause, a rhythm, a signal. The trees leaned in closer, their branches like arms trying to listen better. In the flickering light, shadows began to gather, not cast by fire or form, but by memory. They slithered from behind tree trunks and out from between roots. Silhouettes of goats danced, laughing children with hollow eyes, and one old woman who had lost her mind trying to count how many times Eshu's lies had wrapped around her days like smoke. I never meant to harm, Eshu said, speaking to the shadows now. I meant to teach, to test, to reveal. A chorus of whispering laughter rose up. Not warm laughter, not joyful. Laughter twisted by irony, filled with old teeth and damp breath. It echoed like mockingbirds on their worst days. The drum beneath his fingers pulsed on its own now. The rhythm was no longer his. It belonged to the forest. You will play it, the voice said from above. Eshu looked up. A figure stood on a branch, robed in green and brown, with a mask carved from termite-chewed wood. No eyes, no mouth, just swirling patterns like vines growing across time. The spirit of reconciliation, rare, ancient, and only ever summoned when the balance was badly tilted. Play what? Eshu asked. The song of what you buried. He hesitated. His fingers hovered over the taut skin of the drum. The song they were asking for had not been played since the season of long rain, when he had made a village forget its own name. For 7 days, children had wandered into the woods. A woman had married a tree, thinking it was her husband. That story had ended with flames and silence, and shame. I buried it for a reason, he said quietly. The spirit of reconciliation did not move, and the forest remembers it for a reason. The fire dimmed to embers. The shadows crowded closer, now more distinct. One of them looked like a child with a broken flute, another like a man with no mouth, screaming through his eyes. Eshu looked down. His heart, usually so light, so untethered, felt heavy, as if it had grown roots in the dirt beneath him. He struck the first note, then another. The rhythm formed itself in his hands, reluctant at first, then growing bold. The air vibrated, the soil trembled, and the trees, they leaned in. The song told a story without words. It sang of lies dressed as dreams, of pranks turned cruel, of joy manipulated into obedience. It spoke of the time he made the rain fall upward for 3 days, flooding the sky and confusing the birds so badly they forgot how to land. Of the old herbalist who wandered in circles, trapped in a spell of Eshu's making, until her bones became moss-covered stones. Of the night he told the spirits that the villagers no longer respected them, and the spirits responded with fire as he played. Tears slid silently down his cheeks, not because he felt guilt but because he remembered. He remembered every smirk, every clever turn of phrase, every burst of laughter that had hidden real fear. It was never about cruelty. It was always about power. And that, he now saw, had made it worse. The shadows began to sing, wordless harmonies, chilling in their clarity. Each note filled the spaces between his beats, turning the music into a living thing. The spirit of reconciliation began to move its hands in slow, circular motions, guiding the energies as they built around the clearing. Eshu played faster. The drum was hot beneath his palms now. His arms ached. The beat spun into itself, tightening like a noose. The shadows closed in, one by one. They touched the drum with spectral hands, and with each touch, a memory leapt out bright, searing, undeniable. He saw the face of the child who had believed a magic stone could let him fly, and who jumped from the tree to prove it. He saw the blind elder he had convinced could see through truth's smoke that was nothing more than ashes. And he saw himself young, wild-eyed, amused beyond measure at the chaos he'd caused. The final beat came like thunder. Eshu's hands froze in place, locked over the drum as the last note hung in the air. Heavy and wet like a monsoon cloud about to burst, silence, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then the spirit of reconciliation stepped down from the tree. Its feet didn't touch the ground. It hovered just above it, weightless as mist. It approached Eshu and placed one long-fingered hand on his head. "You have remembered," it said. "Now you must carry it." Eshu bowed his head. "I will." The drum split down the middle, not broken, but opened. From within it came a smaller drum, pale and pulsing like a heart. It beat on its own. "This is your penance," the spirit said. "You will play the stories, not twist them. You will drum truth into lies until they confess. You will give laughter back to the trees, so they may grow honest again." Eshu took the small drum in his hands. It felt heavy for its size, filled not with sound but with weight of stories, of duty, of echoes. The shadows faded, their forms relaxing, unwinding into the mist. One by one, they returned to their trees, their rocks, their burrows. The fire sparked once and then died out. Eshu stood. He did not smile, but his fingers moved gently over the new drum's skin, coaxing out a single note. It was quiet. It was true. In the heart of the whispering savanna, under a sky bruised purple by an oncoming storm, a solemn silence blanketed the ancient grove of judgment. This was not a silence born of absence, but one vibrating with held breath, of spirits peering between the veil, and ancestors gathering unseen. Eshu stood in the center of a ceremonial circle carved into the earth by time and memory, surrounded by the drummers of truth, the fire keepers of the old law, and the veiled seers who bore no name. His shoulders were straight, but his eyes held the weight of a soul tested over lifetimes. The trial was not of guilt or innocence, but of alignment. Had Eshu remained a guardian of balance, or tipped too far into chaos? Around him, fires flickered in copper bowls set in a perfect ring. The trial of the flame. It was called, a rite only invoked once every few generations. When a being of immense power risked becoming too potent, too clever, too free, Eshu was not being punished. He was being measured. The drummers struck their first rhythm, not with haste, but with grave patience. Their palms met the stretched goat hide in patterns that echoed like heartbeats of the ancestors. Each beat called forth a memory. Each vibration lifted stories into the air. And then the flame began to rise, not from wood, but from memory. It coiled upward in the center of the circle, taking shape, flickering with images of Eshu's past, his bargains, his betrayals, his mercy, his meddling. It was a flame made of narrative, a voice, old as basalt and cracked by desert winds, whispered, "Eshu, keeper of crossroads. What have you done with the gifts the gods gave you?" Eshu did not respond with words. Instead, he walked toward the flame, arms extended. The flame hissed, parted, then shaped itself into scenes. The first, a market square in the city of Iron, where Eshu had convinced a greedy merchant to give away his entire stock to orphans under the illusion of a royal inspection. The crowd had cheered. The merchant wept, but hunger had vanished for a season. The elders murmured. One clapped once, sharp and short, approval. Perhaps, then the flame shimmered again, and this time showed the valley of dust, where Eshu had stolen a sacred staff meant to heal a dying river. In its absence, the people prayed, starved, waited. Only when their faith was close to breaking did Eshu return it, disguised as a child, so they would find it by miracle. The river flowed again, and faith swelled. Did he steal their suffering, or magnify their hope? One of the veiled judges asked softly, not to Eshu, but to the air itself. The trial was not about evidence. It was about balance. The trickster had always walked the knife's edge between deliverance and despair. The flame pulsed once more, now revealing a darker moment. The time Eshu whispered doubts into the heart of a young warrior chief, leading to civil war between twin kingdoms. Countless lives lost, years of bloodshed. But then, from the ashes, a new alliance had formed, stronger, wiser, born of shared grief. This was the dance of Eshu. He stirred the pot not to poison, but to prevent stagnation. The flame sputtered suddenly, turning blue. A warning. The drummers stilled. A hush dropped like a stone. One of the flame keepers stepped forward, eyes wide. "He's been touched by the third path," she said. Murmurs erupted. The third path was neither balance nor chaos, but transformation. Few ever walked it without being consumed. It was a path that turned gods into something else. Eshu remained silent. The flame twisted, and the sky above rumbled with thunder. A single bolt of lightning cracked through the heavens and struck the circle's center. The flame absorbed it without flinching. Then, for the first time, Eshu spoke. "I have walked across centuries barefoot, danced with fools, whispered to kings, kissed madness on the lips, and mourned for wisdom. I have lied to speak truth, and I have stolen to give. If that is sin, so be it. If that is virtue, I laugh at the word." One of the elder judges nodded. "Then we ask only this," she said. "Do you still serve balance?" Eshu looked up at the sky, where the storm clouds spiraled like watchful eyes. Then he pulled from his robes the trickster's drum, the very one that began this tale. Its hide bore symbols no living tongue could translate. Its rim glinted. With sacred brass, he struck it once. The sound did not echo. It simply was. It filled every ear, every stone, every branch. It carried memory, laughter, death, betrayal, love, the taste of ripe fruit, and the loneliness of stars. The flame bowed low, as if in reverence. The judges rose. "Then let the flame judge him not," they said, in unison. "Let the drum speak instead." And the drum beat again. It beat through the soil, through buried bones and tangled roots, through forgotten altars and the silent tongues of ancestors. And one by one, spirits rose, not of gods, but of mortals whose lives Eshu had changed. For better or worse, they circled the fire, silent but present. A mother whose child lived because of his mischief. A king whose crown cracked because of his whispers. A dancer who found joy through a lie he told. They all looked at Eshu. They bowed. The flame went out. The trial was over. Eshu did not smile. He simply turned, lifted the trickster's drum onto his back, and walked away into the shifting dusk. The sky wept a little rain. The earth sighed in relief. And somewhere far off, a child laughed, chasing butterflies that turned into masks that turned into nothing. The world would never be still. And perhaps that was the point. The night was thick with a silence older than speech, deeper than memory. It wrapped around the land like mourning cloth, and even the stars blinked slower, as if holding their breath. The moon, a waning sliver, hung low and heavy in the sky, not watching but remembering. Its pale light traced shadows across the ancient forest floor, where gnarled roots coiled like sleeping serpents, and every leaf held still, transfixed by a rhythm that had not yet begun. Eshu stood at the edge of a shallow glade, a figure part man, part myth. His robe shimmered in faint pulses of red and black, colors that moved with a will of their own, whispering half-forgotten stories of laughter and loss. Before him stood the Trickster's drum, neither large nor ornate, but unmistakably ancient. Its surface, taut and sunken with age, bore symbols etched so long ago that even the gods had forgotten their meanings. Round it, the earth had shifted over time, forming a perfect circle of stone and vine, like a wound too old to heal. He looked up at the moon. It was time. He had wandered lifetimes to reach this moment, slipping through riddles and reincarnations, through laughter that disguised grief and mischief that sheltered wisdom. He had danced with spirits in shadowed markets, traded futures in the eyes of unborn children, and bent the laws of causality like twine. But this was the last turn of the story, the echo that would not fade. Eshu knelt, his fingers gnarled. With centuries hovered over the drum's skin. He did not strike it yet. First, he breathed, slowly, the kind of breath that was less about air and more about letting go. Around him, the forest shifted. The wind dared not blow. The trees, witnesses for millennia, stood in solemn stillness. Somewhere in the far distance, a wolf began to howl, but the sound caught midway, fading into a broken whimper, as if the creature had forgotten why it sang. Eshu whispered a name. No one living could hear it, but the soil stirred. The shadows lengthened and curved inward, as though leaning closer, drawn by something inevitable. He raised his hand, not high, just enough to promise that the strike was coming in that moment. Every story he had ever twisted, every fate he had ever tangled, gathered behind him like ghosts. They shimmered faintly, memories of choices made in error or brilliance. Lovers kissed, then lost. Betrayals born from too much trust or too little. Children born with the laughter of trickster blood in their veins. All of it, a river running behind his fingertips. The drum waited. Eshu struck. Once, the sound was not loud. It was not a thunderclap nor a shout. It was a note that slipped through dimensions like water through fingers. The tone echoed through time, bending it gently. Leaves aged, then grew green again. Stars blinked backward. A firefly reversed its path mid-flight. Somewhere, a man forgot why he was angry. Somewhere else, a woman remembered who she used to be. The drumbeat carved a ripple in the air. It flowed outward in rings, unseen yet felt, passing through skin and thought, unsettling the logic of the world. Above, the moon pulsed in response, shedding not light but memory. It dripped down like slow milk, spilling into the glade. Eshu struck again, twice this time. The sound was color. Purple and gold shimmered in the air, cascading like falling leaves in a breeze that never touched the ground. With it came scent, smoke, rose, earth, blood. With it came feeling, every forgotten kiss, every overlooked kindness, every shame we bury in laughter. The trees bowed. The sky tilted. Eshu closed his eyes. He was becoming something else, or perhaps returning to something older. His face blurred, not in shape, but in meaning. He was no longer man, nor god, nor shadow. He was intention. He was paradox. He was the trick. He struck a third time. This beat did not echo. It absorbed. The sound fell inward, like a heart collapsing, or a secret finally told. The glade darkened not with absence, but with fullness. It was as if every moment of silence that had ever existed had gathered here, in this place, to listen. And in that silence, time cracked, not shattered, cracked, like porcelain, fine and delicate. A fracture ran through the spine of reality, not to destroy, but to let something slip out. Orin. The moon wept, not water, not light, but something more ephemeral. Tears made of longing, of endings. Eshu stood, his body flickered. In one breath, he was young, barefoot, laughing, draped in the boldness of children who do not yet know regret. In another, he was old, wrinkled, limping, eyes filled with the sadness of tricksters who have seen too much. He held both truths. He always had. Let them remember. He whispered, and the forest listened. Beneath his feet, the roots rearranged themselves, curling into glyphs that spelled out prayers no one prayed anymore. The drum sank into the soil, slowly, gently, as though the earth was swallowing it whole, digesting its song into myth. Vines crept across the circle, sealing it shut. Eshu turned once, slowly, and looked up at the moon. Your turn, he said softly, and the moon responded. Its light faded, not gone, but transformed. It became translucent, like parchment held to fire. On its surface, new stories began to write themselves. Symbols danced, faces appeared, then vanished. The ancestors gathered in its glow, nodding, smiling. Some frowned, but even their disapproval carried the weight of understanding. Then quiet, not the silence of emptiness, the silence of completion. Eshu stepped backward, fading as he moved. With every footfall, he grew less defined, until even his shadow was only a suggestion, a shimmer. A memory of a man who had once played the drum of the gods and made them laugh. And then he was gone. The glade held still. And then it, too, began to vanish. The trees bent inward, curling toward each other like petals closing. The earth swallowed the circle whole. Birds began to sing again, but slower, more thoughtful. The world remembered how to breathe in the sky. The moon remained, changed, watching, a mirror holding the last echo of a trickster's beat. Somewhere, a child would dream of a rhythm they could not place. Somewhere, a storyteller would forget where their tale began. And somewhere far beyond the lands of mortals, fate itself paused just for a moment and smiled.